Hello, my name is George Diaz with Larry Jacob Internet Marketing, and I want to share with you some LearnDash tips for increasing your completion rates. And I want to talk about completion rates and finishing a course in a very specific way, because what we want to do is tie it to the results your students are getting and how that has a really good business impact for you. So course completion rates are often overlooked. You're so busy figuring out how to sell it, how to get people into your program, that then the course's structure and how people go through it becomes kind of an afterthought. And a lot of people, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, will start thinking about how to create badges and leaderboards and other things that are motivators before they really focus on what's important, which is, are people going through the course in a way that they want to learn. Now, why are completion rates so important? First of all, when someone buys a course, you want to make sure they feel like they've gotten the most value out of it. And if they're not completing, one of the things that they're going to start thinking is, man, did I buy the wrong course? Maybe I'm not the right student for this. And this is especially the case if they feel overwhelmed or if they got some sort of confusion. And the problem is that they won't complain. They're just kind of disengage and fade. And the end result is they're not going to be as satisfied. They're not going to renew and buy another course from you. They're not going to refer people they know to you, and that's going to affect your long-term revenue. So let's go over a few of these tips on how to address this. So the first one is you want to reduce the learner's mental load before you start adding motivators. So badges and leaderboards and things that motivate them are great things, but before you do that, you want to make sure that you look at your course, you analyze it from the student's perspective and not from you, the course builder's perspective. Are the lessons grouped logically into short, outcome-based sections? Do the learners know exactly what they'll be able to do after they finish a group of lessons, a module, depending on how you name your course? Do they really know what they've accomplished and what they'll be able to leave the course with and do as a result of finishing a specific section? And is it obvious what the next step is after they've gone through that? Because you don't want your people to be I want to say disoriented or wondering, okay, well, this was interesting, but I'm not sure what to do next. So, go through your course and then consider renaming things based on not so much the topics, but on what the outcomes are. It's much better to say something like configure your first automation or configure your first, whatever your topic is, configure your first versus an automation overview, because an overview doesn't tell me anything. But if I know that I'm going to be able to get through or configure my first automation, I have a mental picture of what I should be able to do when I get to the end of that section, and I'll feel like I've accomplished something. Now, tip number 2 is make sure that you're designing for momentum, not completion. Adult learners typically aren't going to go right down a list in order. They're not going to be binging it like they would if they're doing a Netflix, episode after episode. They're probably going to be scanning the course wondering, oh, look, this is kind of the big problem I'm trying to solve. Let me go right to there. So to increase completion rate, structure your lessons so that the progress feels like frequent and visible, like I know I've accomplished something as I've gone through it. The LearnDash completion buttons, the progress bars, and the course navigation, those are all well and good, but you want to make sure that the progress is being measured in ways that makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something, not just like I'm ticking off lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. And that's very critical. So aim for lessons that can be completed, I want to say in 5 to 12 minutes. Anything longer than that can be, overwhelming or just too long. Keep in mind that a lot of your adult learners are going to be distracted when they're doing this. They might be at their desk and they're getting emails and interrupted. It could be that, it's a soccer mom and she's learning on her phone while she's waiting for her kids to get off of soccer practice. So, if you can say, hey, this is going to take 5 minutes, it's going to take 10 minutes, people can kind of prepare to that and then fit it into their daily lives, because a lot of people are learning that way. Okay, use drip content strategically. Don't be like automatic. A lot of people will come up and say, oh, you need to finish this much in a week, you need to finish this much in another week, and then they drip the content out using very good LearnDash features for doing that. But that's not typically how people are going to use the course. And if there is something that you are going to drip it out, make sure that you're dripping out sections that are a unit. It's not just, oh, let's make sure that I get, if it's a 10 lesson course, that I get lesson 1 and 2 first week, lesson 2 and 3 the second week, all the way out to 5 or 6 weeks. You want to make it so that the drips are based on things that are strategic to the person who's taken the course. And, if your course is evergreen, which in a lot of cases it is, you might consider dripping things out when people arrive at certain places in the course and not just on the calendar. That will make a lot more sense to your students. It'll keep them motivated versus them coming up and saying, well, gosh, they just dripped out the second and the third week and I'm still on the first week. What's wrong with me? You really want to avoid having people point to themselves as the problem, because your course is structured in a way that makes them feel disoriented or out of touch with what the expectations of the course are. Now, tip number 4 is tie progress to real world application. So if you can come up and say things at the end of a lesson, hey, pause here and implement X before moving on. Reply in the community, assuming you have a community that's associated with your LearnDash course, when your step is completed. So it's like you're telling people what they should do outside of your course at certain points throughout. And that way the completion, and it's not just ticking off a lesson, it's when you do this other thing. And it's related to what you can do with the information that you just took, and learned, versus just kind of going through there and feeling like, okay, I checked another checkbox. So, add short implementation checkpoints throughout your program so that people go, hey, look, I was able to do this thing that they taught me after I got to this point. So they feel like they get a little bit of an attaboy that's self-induced because they were able to do something that they weren't able to do before. And then, tip number 5 is align your course design with your business model. Success has to be based on what it is that you're accomplishing. So let's say you've got a certification course. Well, the certification is going to require that they finish everything, in which case, getting to 100% is really important. But there might be other like foundational learning courses or something that's coaching oriented, where getting to 100% isn't really all that important. What you want to make sure is that they've hit some checkpoints that they've set for themselves based on your course content. And they do feel like they've completed it, even if they skipped, they started with lesson 1 and then they skipped 2 and 3 and then they went to number 4, because 4, 5, and 6 is really what they were interested most in. And, business owners are busy. People want to learn the minimum they need to learn in order to get something accomplished in their business, in their lives, whatever it is that they're trying to learn. So you want to make it so that they feel that they hit 100% completion based on what their goals are, not on some ticky points that they're doing. Keep in mind that what you're really wanting to do is to have a satisfied user that's more than happy to refer you to other people. You want them, if you have a recurring membership, you want them to be eager to renew, not thinking, gosh, did I really get enough value out of this and should I renew? And then that's what leads to your getting more revenue. So if I finish a course, I'm very excited, and now I'm looking for what's the next thing this person can provide to me so that I can learn some more. You've got yourself a winner. But if they kind of faded and they, later it's like, well, I paid for it. What the heck? I didn't get too much out of it, but I'm just going to move on. That person's not going to refer people. They're not going to buy something else from you, and it's not going to enable you to generate business from them. So, that's how this LearnDash expert recommends that you think about completion rates. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions that you think I can help you out with.